So we're on the Mendips, which is a plunging anticline. Old red sandstone covered by carboniferous limestone, pushed up recently. 20,000 years ago we were part of a glacial outwash plain, hence we've got clay deposits here around the farm, and on the Mendips there's quite thick clay deposits, so they've enabled ponds to develop. We've got a pond right outside the back door of the house, hence why there's a property here, I guess. It's on a map from about 1540. It's the time of year, October, we got fungus coming through, lots of different types of fungus. I'm not that clever on what they all are, but it's a sign that our soil is active, that we've got a balance between fungus and bacteria, which is good. As you can see when you look down into the sward, there's a little bit of clover, a little bit of vetch, huge variety of grasses. There's plantains, different types of grasses. As far as I know, this land hasn't had any cultivations on it for at least 60 years. It's only been mown by ourselves once, and that was the first year we got here. So it's almost as nature will have it. There's a bit of gorse, which we top on a rolling average of every 3 years, but we allow a bit of gorse here because it's October, it's in flower, it's a feed for insects. Adds a bit of colour on a dull day like today. And you will notice at times the cattle or the sheep go along and just pick the flower heads off because they are quite sweet. And I believe it's a nitrogen fixing plant, so it's got its uses. Everything's got its uses. We're going to go and get the water trough, and I must remember the salt lick. We put the salt lick out, it increases the appetite, and I just got a force of habit now that they've always got salt licks out for them. For the sheep it's definitely beneficial. For lambs it stops them getting ORF, contagious pustular dermatitis. Seems to eradicate that. It's like a cold sore. Other times of the year with the cattle we use a mag block. We've had issues with magnesium. Obviously we've got a magnesium calcium imbalance in the soil somewhere. Hopefully the regen approach will slowly put that right. And we're using a garlic bucket as well through the summer months to help prevent any fly issues for the cattle. Seems to work. We haven't had any issues, any pink eye, and they don't seem to be too hassled by flies, especially on days like today. So we're now back in the paddock where the stock were yesterday. They were out here for 24 hours. And as an average, I think we're looking at about a cow pat for every 3 square meters. It's of a good consistency. It's a good shape. So it's not a splat, it's a cow pat. Plenty of fibre. The sward that's left is still extremely dense. You can't really see even where the hoof prints are. That is nowhere near the soil. It's actually quite hard to get to the soil. There's a little bit of soil. No, it kind of moves from the soil becomes the grassland becomes the soil. So you've got that interaction zone of 3-4 centimeters. That will be a concentration of plant breakdown, decomposition, and soil, which would be high in a lot of root penetration and kind of activity of worms and dung beetles and microbes of all sorts. I would say as a percentage, probably taken a lot of the broadleaf plants out, although there's still a density of them left here. To some we could probably take it down a little bit tighter, but we're only early October. As I say, the soil's warm, we will get growth there again. If we challenged it too hard by taking another inch off the grass and we have a frost, we'd probably slow it right up for winter. So we're trying to always run the balance of getting it to keep that armour on the soil, to keep the potential for growth there. So we've always got a fallback. It's like having your insurance policy. You might not need it, but it's always pays to have it. I can notice something that's gone on here. We've got some plants that have been pulled out. We've got a bit of cocksfoot there, but what's in amongst a tuft of grass which the cattle aren't so fond of, so someone's had a real go at it. But there's plenty of other plant there, so maybe just the concentration of that big plant, it's actually shedding. It's got weak within its own structure because there's so much of it. But potentially that's going to give room, because it's not exposing the soil at all, that's going to give chance for other plants to come through, maybe some more of our broadleafs. That's quite a collection. So what we have out here, cows with bull calves, some have been castrated, yearling bulls and the mature stock bull. So they stay as one group. They seem to all get on relatively well. The old bull keeps the younger bulls under control. The cows are already in calves, so there's no hassling of the female cows. Cows with heifer calves are away on another block of land, so we don't get heifers back in calf that we don't want in calf. When they come off of that grazing to come back here for the winter, the bulls will be put in a separate group, so we'll still only end up with two different groups. What we're always trying to do with the mob grazing is just keep as few groups as possible, concentrated as possible, to have the greatest impact on the land and the most efficiency of my time and the grazing of the pasture. We've got, as I say, the 5 yearlings out here, they would probably be 600 kilo. And then we've got 5 cows that would be 600 kilo, plus smaller calves, varying from 150, 200 kilo up to kind of 350 kilo. So probably, do some rapid maths here, someone, could be about 18 cattle at an average of, say, let's say 500 kilos, so that's 9 tonne. 3% of 9 tonne is close on, crunch, were 300 kilos. So they need 300 kilos of dry matter a day. We look into the sward, and this seems to be providing, by comparison to what we moved them off of yesterday, 300 kilos of feed. It's not pure science. We could probably do it exact science and we wouldn't be too far out. A lot of this, because it's on a daily basis, if that's muddy, we haven't got enough. If there's a load of grass yet that left there, we've given them too much. So we just adjust the size of the blocks. At the moment, we're on 25 meters by 40 meters on a daily basis. And the condition of them, I think they look healthy. So it's some stockman's eye.
Lines on their neck.
And on their rib cage. Happy lines on the animals. I've been told about these and ours have got happy lines, so must be doing something right. And they look content. And when we started, before we started the mob grazing, I had an area which I thought I'll just keep the cows on that one field all winter. We had a hard standing area. We were feeding hay, silage, fodder beet, molasses. Come January, February, God, they looked pissed off with me because they didn't have something. And then when we moved on to mob grazing, giving them this kind of area per day, it's just like, I felt better because the animals were telling me they were content because they had fresh food every day. And it's now very easy to look back and go, well, why was I doing that? Challenges, oh, I can't do that, I haven't got a mobile water trough. Easy, get a bit more blue ultra-thin pipe and put a water trough on the end of it and move it. Electric fence. I've got lots of electric fence, just put electric fence up. It takes to do 3 blocks, which we do on an average with the 500 metre rolls, which I've had for a long time after grazing loads of sheep for years. Takes about half an hour to do that. So that's kind of like 10 minutes equivalent of fencing a day for the stock to be happy. And you've got to go and see your stock every day, so doing that, you fence your paddock up and you're always observing them. So you know if a cow's bulling, you know if someone's a little bit poorly because they're not eating. You can see with the young bulls, they just give each other a little bit of a, come on in, come on. But that's what you need to see in something that's maturing the correct manner. And by having them in a concentrated block, we're not giving them so much chance to be selective. So they're just eating the grass, and we can see all the paddocks they've eaten before, other than maybe a few standing thistles and a bit of gorse, everything is roughly at a level. So they've taken it nice and evenly. That's going to give all the plants that are there a chance to bounce back. This was last grazed back end of July, so we've had 60 to 80 days break. Has been a very damp summer, so it's grown very well, but we've got such a density of sward that you can't actually feel the ground, you just stood on grass. So we look down into the sward just to see what we've got here. So let's try and find some soil. Well, there is none, but what I do know is you put your fingers down there where it's breaking down, it's very warm by comparison to up here. So we've created our own little microclimate that's going to keep everything very active in the soil and not in that area. So breakdown is going to be rapid, incorporation back into the soil, worms, dung beetles, microbes. It's going to be as good as it can get. I think the growing season on the Mendips, by comparison to 600 foot lower in the local valleys, would be 3 weeks later starting the spring, 3 weeks earlier finishing in the autumn. But I think we're extending it because as we had a look at that warmth that's generated in the soil now, because we've got that constant cover, we're increasing it. So we're getting more grass growth on the shoulders of the season, but we're constantly grazing, so it's very hard to tell. And I would guess if we give this 120 days, so we could be back out here February time. Whether we will need to be, I don't know. We've got conserved fodder for the winter. We're going to roll out some hay or feed the hay. We've got some silage, so we can tighten things up on grounds that they need a bit more animal impact and maybe some natural reseeding. So this will probably still have a rest of maybe a kind of 120 days, maybe 200 days. So we've got good foddered lamb ewes on next spring.